Why should any public officer, politician or senior public officer, be allowed to travel out to go and seek healthcare? If you look at the budget for external medical treatment, why are we not prepared to make sure that there are MRIs in every region, that there are CT scans? Nkrumah started Encyclopedia Africana. Where is it? What has happened to it? Because we disagree ideologically doesn't mean that something that is beneficial to the good people of this country and to Africa at large should not be continued. Britain's role in the 1966 coup was how to separate Kwame Nkrumah from the people, because he was so much loved by his people because of his genuineness.
Hello and welcome to Talking Africa. Today we bring to you a very special interview, and I say this with a lot of confidence because we have with us a very esteemed guest. Between the years of 2002 and 2006, he served as the Director General of Ghana's Health Service, a professor of pathology, and arguably Ghana's most respected and recognized pathologist, a man who is a Ghanaian statesman, a patriot, and a dyed-in-the-wool Nkrumaists. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Professor Agyeman Badu Akosa.
Thank you very much, Aja.
Yes, sir. So, Prof, first of all, I need to ask you, it's been a while we saw you in the mainstream media, especially when it comes to politics. Is there a reason accounting for your relative absence from the media scene?
I wouldn't say there's a definite reason, but sometimes silence is golden. And it's good to keep to yourself and see whether you're missed on the national platform at all. I don't think I've been missed, and therefore, as far as I'm concerned, it's okay. I mean, politics is cyclical. You have your moments and you have your non-moments. So I chose to keep quiet for good reason.
Well, Prof, as to whether you have not been missed, I would beg to disagree, because just recently, we shared a few of your videos on our platform, and I have to say the reactions to the videos were very impressive. But Prof, let me ask you, coming off the back of the last elections, where, once again, our very own CPP, performed abysmally. Prof, first of all, are you still a member of the CPP?
Nominally, yes. But I am not an overt member. And the reasons are that several so-called members of the CPP have not demonstrated good faith to the party, right from leadership to ordinary members to so-called foot soldiers. If you can imagine that every constituency is expected at least to have 6 to 9 membership, and so many polling stations, the CPP gets 0. Then those who profess to be CPP members are indeed not. In fact, there was one delegates conference we had 2007 when I was aspiring to lead the CPP, that Honorable Yasafu Mafo called me and said, most of the people who left Odan for KNUST as CPP delegates were in fact MPP members. The party itself is not prepared to take the bold decisions to organize itself. So being a member of it, I would say nominally, it really is painful to see people who profess and lead the party down the tubes. That is not what Nkrumaists are supposed to do.
Prof, I have a question that has been bothering me for so long, you see. So I believe this is the right time for me to ask you this question. Prof, I believe you would agree with me that when we speak about the Osagifo, and I mean Osagifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, one thing that we can use to describe him is his relevance, his enduring relevance. As the more time passes, the more relevant he appears to become. But Prof, at the same time, there appears to be a contradiction because Nkrumaists, at least in the past 30 or so years, if there's also one quality to describe them, it would be their irrelevance. So I struggle to reconcile how the man himself is so relevant and those who seek to ride on his shoulders cannot appear to make any impact whatsoever. What accounts for this?
I think it is because the bulk of them are really not dyed-in-the-wool Nkrumaists. To be an Nkrumahist is not just to profess it. It is to act in a selfless manner. Because let's face it, we had a leader who was selfless. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you make a mistake based on the fact that you took a decision only in the supreme interest of the country, I cannot fault you there. I cannot. There was nothing about him that meant that he himself was part of any equation. Not his family, not himself, not his friends. It was more for the country. And with the benefit of hindsight, you can say that, yes, he was wrong on this occasion. But I tell you, as far as the decision-making was concerned, so long as it was in the supreme interest of this country, I will not fault him. And unfortunately, most so-called Nkrumaists are not like that. They want to dabble in the politics of governance. And so there are many people who profess to be CPP, who are NDC, who are NPP, sympathizers. And they go there to look for money and just come and camouflage themselves as members of the Convention People's Party.
Prof, so the CPP, what is the way forward for the CPP now? Because there are those who say that the party should probably be retired, because it has suffered enough indignity, considering its great history. And there are others who are also suggesting that young people should be given a chance to try and revive the party. In your opinion, what should be the way forward for the CPP?
I think it's instructive to know that when Kwame Nkrumah was in Guinea, one of the things that he did say was that if he ever came back, he was going to change the face of the CPP. In other words, those who had gone to the ideological institute were going to be the people who would be the face of the CPP. It means that the CPP is not adverse to change. So let's put that as a fundamental basis. The young people, are they bold enough? Are they educated enough in the instructions and the philosophy of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah? If not, there are those who believe that just as in the formation of the NDC, it was a takeover of the CPP, and it had CPP elements and a few of the Buzia, Dankwa, Domo tradition members. Those who left and went to the NDC were young activists. Now, whether they've stayed true to the Nkrumah's philosophy is another issue. But I dare say that if the numbers are significant enough, the move can be towards the philosophy of Nkrumah. Now, if you move that to the philosophy of Nkrumah, then in a sense, it makes the CPP a little redundant. But I dare say that if they are young men who are bold, you see, our politics, unfortunately, has become politics of money. You cannot organize any constituency without a Ghana must go bag full of money. And I don't know whether the young men are patient enough, are bold enough, have educated themselves enough, are selfless enough to confront that demon of money tricks. All right, money in politics. So the issues are difficult, but I think that it's got to be confronted in a manner that will make some success of the philosophy. You see, whether it is the name, whether it is the philosophy, there will be selfless people who can identify themselves with the aims and objectives of Nkrumaiism, who would get into governance and be selfless, and would put Ghana first, and would make sure that the entire politics is facing the public and therefore sympathetic to the ordinary Ghanaian. I have said that politics must meet the needs of their people at the point of need. It should not meet the needs of political activists. But from 1992, who are the beneficiaries of our democratic dispensation? They are the political class. If you're not in the political class, even if you are the most sensible, nobody cares about you. You understand? So our politics has changed dramatically. It wasn't the days when, let me go back, after the NLM in 1954, when the Nkrumaists were not permitted to go to Kumasi. All right? The Kumasi, the CPP, Ashanti, CPP had virtually been decimated. They'd all been driven away. All right? My father had gone to Asante Mampong because he said he wasn't coming to Accra. But most people had come to Accra, and they had been housed at the Wudome Estates. A lot of people don't know this. A Wudome Estates was built to house most of the people who had been driven out of Ashanti. Wow. Now, when finally the decision was, we will go, N.A. Welbeck led the team. All right? And anywhere they got to Nsawam, they were met by people. They gave them money. They moved on. They got to Suhum, Krabwa Kota constituency. They were met by people. They gave them money. They moved on till they got to Kumasi. And when they got to Kumasi, they were shocked. Because look, apart from everything, in every Ashanti family, there are CPP activists and there are people of the, it speaks as if Ashantis are all NPP. It is not true. There are those who believe in the philosophy of Kwame Nkrumah. The question is, how do we gel all these things together to make Osagyefo's philosophy not redundant but relevant? Because that philosophy is still relevant. A philosophy of a selfless leader who champions the cause of his people. For him to have said that, judge us not from the heights that we've attained, but from the depths from which we came. And that by the Christmas of 1958, every Ghanaian will not be in need of food, clothing, shelter, health, and education. I challenge any leader of this country to be able to say that, make that statement. All right? And be judged by that statement. What has happened? Is that not a relevant statement? Of course it is relevant. But what is important is, who is the messenger? How bold is the messenger? And how bold is the messenger in today's political construct? All right? Where it is not people moved by emotion, by philosophy, by ideas, but unfortunately, by money.
Prof, before I ask my next question, I have to say that I'm happy you mentioned the fact that many people in the Ashanti region, at the height of, NLM's, resistance to the CPP, were in fact supporting the CPP, against all odds, because unfortunately, there are certain times when we've posted videos of Osagyefo and we find people who say that, these particular people were against Osagyefo, and it is important. I'm happy you pointed it out that there were actually people in Kumasi and the Ashanti region who were staunchly behind the CPP.
Oh, there are no names. The Jantuas, the two brothers, FA and KSP, Akosa, Jura, there were names. These were phenomenal personalities in Kumasi. Of course, Krabadu said. And these were people who said, look, I asked my father why he supported Kwame Nkrumah. He said, look, the first day they met him, the man spoke about education for all. My father finished middle school Form 4. But a very generous and astute man. He lived for his community. And he did good by his community. And you can look at people of my father's, ilk. You mentioned Kwame Kwache. The people of Odan will talk about him. You mentioned Amwewa in Suhum. All these people Agyeman. All these people did good by their community because they followed a leader who was selfless. And therefore, they were also selfless and generous. But you see, if you have a situation where Ashanti chieftain pours libation and says that anybody who supports Nkrumah is against the golden stool, against the importance of Ashanti, then it becomes a very powerful cultural, should I say, issue to negotiate. But my father felt that, fine, I don't have to live in Kumasi. I worked in Kumasi. He had his business in Kumasi. So he moved to Asante Mampong, his hometown. He felt comfortable there because there he had done a lot for the people. And he knew that there was nobody who could come into Mampong to come and attack him. But many who were in Kumasi and were not, should I say, icons in their own community, moved to Accra. But it was a resistance that was not to be forgotten, but it was almost like, let's get out, but we will launch our pad at the appropriate time. And they did launch their pad in Ashanti region. That is why they won a lot more seats in Ashanti region than even the so-called NLM people.
Right, Prof. Prof, so back to the present, you have highlighted the difficulties in the current reality where money has become the decisive factor in winning political power. So, Prof, I need to ask you, at this point in time, sincerely, is there a way for, let me say, an Nkrumahist movement or Nkrumaists or Ghanaian patriots to mobilize and win political power, especially against the two dominant parties?
Well, politics is about winning power. But politics starts with mass education. One of the things that really hurts me at this stage in my life was the fact that we jettisoned the entire education of our Ghanaian citizens to be patriots. Patriotism, you're not born with it. You are schooled and made to feel that your country is of utmost importance. And anytime there's a conflict between your country and elsewhere, you stand firmly behind your country. That is what we learned. And I think in one of my interviews, I recounted, what we learned in the Young Pioneer movement. See, the Young Pioneer movement was bastardized after the 66 coup as a propaganda tool. But what is propaganda about love of country, honesty and obedience? What is propaganda about that? That you are training a child of, let's say, from 8 to love his country, to be honest, to be obedient. I mean, what is propaganda about that? To be punctual, all those things. The disciplinary code of the convention of the Young Pioneer movement was meant to train the mind of a Ghanaian child to be a patriot. Do we have patriots in Ghana today? No. Well, let's search. There may be, but you can't find them amongst, it's almost like a needle in a haystack. All right? But the real tragedy is the fact that people have gone into leadership in this country and have not one drop of patriotism in them. They are selfish, they are greedy, they are arrogant, they hate Ghanaians, and they don't love poor people. And I believe that, for me, it is one of, let me just say, interestingly, Professor Frimpong Boateng is my brother, all right, from a different mother, you understand? Interestingly, we both became very senior, eminent people within the healthcare industry. He was chief executive for Kolebu Teaching Hospital. I was director general of the Ghana Health Service. I knew his antecedents because he grew up in Awudome Estates. Now that speaks volumes, all right? So at some stage when we were both political, I went to see him, whether he could become a leader of the Convention People's Party. And I would act as his campaign manager. And he said, oh, give me time, I'm trying to organize myself. Only for people to tell me that your friend that you've mentioned his name is wearing NPP colors. So I went to him and I said, Kwabna, are you arrogant? He said, no. Are you greedy? He said, no. Are you selfish? He said, no. Do you hate the poor? He said, no. Do you dislike Ghanaians? He said, no. Then I said, then how can you say you are a member of that party? And he said, are these the attributes of that party? I said, well, you search. You search. As far as I'm concerned, you must answer to some of these things. Maybe not all, because I came to realize that there were likes of the late Kwaku Baredu, who, as far as I'm concerned, and I wrote a tribute to him that was published in the Daily Graphic, and the eyes that I got on the day of his state burial from, members of the party, I said, the outpouring of grief for, Baredu should not be assumed at all that other members of that party would have the same. You understand? So for me, I have had difficulty with that tradition. I don't believe they serve Ghana very well. We've had 8 very difficult years, very challenging years. I dare that anybody who has survived and survived very well in this country must have been either somebody who has some relationship with the party, or virtually just went into subterfuge, just like what is it called? The name of the submarine. And stayed in his corner and just, left. Most people did that. It's been a very terrible 8 years. And for some of us, even in the discussion on COVID, when I was called for an interview with CTFM, and I said that I suspected that the data was being managed, I got earfuls from people. And fortunately or unfortunately, I got a visitation from the late Kwame Badu, the musician, right, who called me and said, what have you said? That people are all up in arms against you. You cannot speak what is the truth and not be vilified. And he said, look, your father 50 years ago gave me an advice, and I'll share that advice with you. If you've got sense, stay put and let people who think they know you are sensible come to you. Don't go public and provide that kind of information as if you are intelligent and everybody should follow you. No. And from that day, and maybe this plays back to the very first question, I realized silence was gold.
Right, Prof. So, Prof, you see, you just mentioned your aversion towards a certain political tradition. You see, but Prof, some might also say that the opportunity for them to win political power is as a result of the absence of, should I say, let me just use the Nkrumahist tradition. So, Prof, let me ask you, would you say your generation has done the most they could for the present generation today? Would you say you guys have done the best you could to keep the Nkrumahist agenda relevant, to keep it in the mainstream? Or would you say maybe you have not done just about enough?
Oh, of course we have not done enough at all. Not just about enough. We've not done enough at all. You see, my generation, in a sense, we did all the things that were expected of our generation. We were young. Most of us are in our early 70s or late 60s. We were young people. I went to secondary school in 1966. So you can imagine that throughout the CPP time, I was in primary school. All right? You went to secondary school in 1966 after the coup. And everything that happened in this country really did not support patriotism as such. So you went by. You just put your head down, you studied, you got through school, did sixth form, got to University of Ghana Medical School. At that time, there were only 50 admissions into the only medical school in Ghana. So you were lucky to be one out of the 50 who got into medical school. So you go to medical school, you kept your head down, you studied, and qualified as a doctor. And once you get into a certain professional grouping, you are shaped by that profession. And I think many people did that. And therefore, there was nothing like politics. There was nothing like politics. A lot of us, what led me back into politics, even though I come from a political family, was the fact that a former senior police officer called Mr. Awotri. At that time, I just returned as professor of pathology. I was living in Kolebu 15 Staff Road, and I got a visitor. The man came to me, sat down, and asked me 2 questions. Number 1, are you Akosa? Are you your father's son? And I said, yes. Are you an Nkrumahist? I said, of course, yes. He said he was satisfied, and he left. It was a way of having identified a few of the sons and daughters of, the earlier CPP. It was a way of, is it possible to bring some of these guys together? And they needed to find out whether time had not eroded your, your ideology or your Nkrumahist philosophy. And that is what then informed me. He said he wanted to find out whether you are indeed your father's son. And that clicked. All right? There was a vacuum. And they needed people of like mind to enter that fray. I must say that for some of us, you entered politics as a professional person whose training has been on objectivity and not subjectivity. So you, as much as possible, got into politics. You preached what you knew. And for me, as a scientist, everything I know is backed by evidence. Because you can't just say what you like. There must be something backing what you say. So you get into a system. We created education of some of our young people and so on and so forth. But then as soon as you put yourself for leadership, the money issue then comes in. You meet anybody, first thing is, what did you bring? What did you bring? And that for me was the level of subjectivity that makes political leadership in this country crowded, and really doesn't bring out the level of selflessness that one expects from them. Because how do they fund the political experience? How do they fund it? All right? If you are supported by people who have money, you have got to repay their generosity and kindness. And you can't repay it with what? Smiles? You've got to, find opportunities. And for me, I thought that was really choking. So it's difficult. And my unfortunately, maybe the lack of political continuity, in the sense that the coups interrupted political continuity, and therefore a lot of people did not learn the essence of real political tradition, where you did your best, people appreciated what you did, people supported you for what you were doing, and supported you with funds and also with their vote. Unfortunately, we've got to a situation where money has become the elephant in the room. And I say this with all, should I say, advisedly. Using the word elephant in the room is itself another contradiction. But there we go. That has become the issue. So you cannot now create a tradition. And that is why I say that maybe we should all be circumspect and look at how the NDC came into being. They came into being with a takeover. They didn't start a new political party. They took over. Because when I came back from my studies and joined the medical school, and I went back home to see that my dear uncle, who was as die-in-the-wool Nkrumaists as anybody else could say, was the chairman of NDC. You know, and he said, "Oh, Ninyana at the crop. It's all the same." So, unfortunately, they prevailed on everybody with that notion, and people bought into it and have never gone back. So you have virtually given off 80-90% of your traditional base to another political party. And in the same vein, somebody can say that, so why don't the collective, armed with the true philosophy and the true ideology of Osagyefo, join and make, should I say, the soup of the National Democratic Congress more Nkrumahist than any other? And if that is possible, then you can imagine how the change can come. But unless there is and I say this with cringing, there is an Elon Musk type individual who, like somebody said, is worth more than, who can give, each individual in this country, the 7 billion people in this country.
30 million.
No, let's say the 8 billion. I'm told that he's worth 200 and something million. So everybody in the world can get like 3 billion. All right? Unless there's somebody like that who comes and says, I share in that philosophy, I share in that ideology. I have got Ghana must go bags weighing heavily on me, and let's go start the whole process. And let's go start a process by talking about patriotism, mass education, talk about selflessness, talk about the people. And for me, that is where the emphasis is. Let me say this, that His Excellency John Mahama comes from the tradition.
Indeed.
He comes from the tradition. So far, all his speeches have been, as far as I'm concerned, on point. It has been facing the people and giving the people hope. If that gets translated into action, how will you dissociate that from Nkrumah's philosophy? It becomes very difficult to dissociate. So maybe this is the time that all of us must join in and support. Because if our ultimate aim is to meet the needs of the people at their point of need, then we would have achieved that through, should I say, making the soup more of an Nkrumahist philosophy than anything else. So this is where we stuck. But to start and grow the CPP as it is, wow. I don't like the philosophy of Elon Musk, but it must be an Elon Musk type person who is leftist oriented, who is a socialist by definition and by inclination, and is prepared to come and support. And they don't exist on the streets of Accra. And I don't believe that somebody from outside should come and influence the politics of our country. And if they don't exist on the streets of Accra, then I'm saying that probably the best way, and I say this knowing very well the difficulty of starting afresh. Starting afresh. Because that system of the two duopoly can choke you. It can choke you easily. It's choked many people, and many people have jumped out of the political fray because of that. So there we go. If it is possible, let's see if it is possible. But if it is not possible, then maybe the easiest alternative is to say that how different is my philosophy from that of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama? If we all have the same antecedents, and so far his public, speeches or acclamation points to meeting the needs of the people at their point of need.
Prof, so let me ask you now, Prof. There are some, and I do not want to assume for you, but there are some, you see, who suggest that Nkrumaists should join the NDC and try to move the NDC or influence the NDC in the right direction. And there are those who disagree and say, that's not going to work because others have tried to do it, and they go and we don't see anything. They go and they get co-opted and all of that. But at the same time, Prof, we must always contend with the reality. And the reality shows that we have two dominant parties who it does not appear as if are going anywhere anytime soon. So rather than being on the fringes and trying to poke them or trying to lay a hand on them, it appears, and I may be wrong, do you agree that maybe, because, Prof, I see a lot of young people who come out from the university who say they are socialists, they are Nkrumaists, and more often than not, they join the NDC, because they look at least between the two dominant parties and they find the NDC to be more tilted towards Nkrumah than the NPP, And Prof, like I said, I keep on wondering because since 1992 at least, Nkrumaists or those who claim to be Nkrumaists have found themselves on the fringes. And we make no impact, or they make no impact. And as you say, there's no point. And like you said, the point is to win political power, to impact the lives of the people. So, do you think it is a good idea? Because maybe I may be mistaken, but from everything you have said, it appears that you are tilting towards that, at least in a way, that maybe we should look at the NDC, especially with the current leadership, where we know that the president, Mahama, is an Nkrumahist. And at least there are also others in the party now who can also be said to be at least sympathetic to Osagyefo's ideology. So should we look to maybe pitching our tents, or should Nkrumaists look to pitching their tents with the NDC, at least in some way?
If you look to the left of Ghana's political experience, how many so-called Nkrumahist parties are there? The fact that even those outside the duopoly cannot come together, believing in one individual's philosophy, then we have a problem. We have a problem. Not for want of trying, many have done their bit. Look, at the time when I was aspiring to lead the Convention People's Party. I'd had a discussion with my colleague, Dr. Edward Mahama, then the leader of the PNC. And I had told him that if I had won, I would have made him the leader of the two combined party, and I would have been his running mate. And I would have gone to the north to start the campaign whilst he started the campaign down south, and we shall meet in Ashanti region. And I thought it would have been quite a compelling force. But you see, and I say this without any regrets. My opponent, Kwame Nkrumah, was supported by the NPP. They brought him money in the middle of our Congress. Now, would you call him a true Nkrumahist? He won. And the rest is history. If I had won, Edward Mahama and myself, for me, it was not a question of Kwame Nkrumah meeting him in Golden Tulip and trying to, create a scenario where there was a genuine attempt to come together, but forcing the issue so that he would become the leader of the two. No. Sometimes, probably the perceived majority should succumb. I would have said, Edward, you are a more accomplished politician than I am. I have just joined the fray. Take the leadership. I will be your running mate. We hit the regional north-south divide, all right? So it will be my duty to go to the CPP and say, I believe that I have not sold us short. I have done what I think we need to do to get ourselves into the governance of this country. We're all tired of being irrelevant on the periphery. And that, I'm sure, could have created really a major divide. It didn't happen. Has anything else happened? They attempted a reunion. Unfortunately, people had bribed people in the executives to vote for, and so on and so forth. So they went to elections. Kwame Nkrumah was supposed to have won, and the PNC said, no, this was not fair. This was not fair. So it did not happen. In my case, it would not have been anything like, let's go and vote. I am bringing myself and the Convention People's Party to come and join you as your running mate. You think PNC would have said no to that? Yes. At that time, they had seasoned people like Justice Gabriel Porman of the Supreme Court. They would have said, now this is, for me, a beginning. Let's take it, let's run with it. It did not happen. And since then, the divisions out of PNC has come Ayariga, out of CPP has come PPP, now there's APC, there's CCC. Why? Is it because everybody believes that there must be a leader? No. President Kufuor said something, that he would rather be a messenger in an MPP government than a leader of an opposition. Because if politics is about power, you should be closer to that power than further away. All right? And sometimes, there's a great politician in the UK called Niall Bevan. He was the guy who brought the National Health Service and all that. And he said, in politics, you should not be too close to the leadership to be tarnished by whatever repercussions of this thing, but you should not be too distant. All right? To be forgotten. This is where we are in national politics. I know that a lot of my contemporaries believe that we can come together. How long? I contested 2007. All right? 2007 to 2025 is 18 years. We've not made any jot on the political scene. So for how long? Continue till 25 years? What? 50 years? No. I am saying, look, fortunately or unfortunately, Rawlings, who I believe created the divide, having overthrown Hilary Mann's government, being the maker or the convener of the National Democratic Congress, is no more. Hilary Mann is no more. All the icons of the so-called Nkrumaists are no more. The NDC today is the closest to an Nkrumahist tradition. Why don't we support it to succeed? We've had 8 terrible years of the elephant in the room. And if by dint of hard work, the elephant has now been, as my dear friend Arthur Kennedy put it, has been sent into its domain. Why are we coy to assist this government to succeed? And I'm not saying this because I want any position. No. I've survived from 2007 to now quite well, and I can continue to survive very well. But for any country that is not prepared to harvest its intellectual might, you're not going anywhere too soon. If your development is also not culturally based, your development is not sustainable. All right? And there are many, and I dare say that we've got to a time when there are people even on the fringes of their NPP party who are so astute, who are intelligent, who want the development of this country, who can be brought in somehow. All right? And by doing that, you are diminishing that tradition probably even more. It takes quite an astute politician to jump into the enemy's camp and play games with the enemy. And maybe this is probably the time for Ghana to experience that. In, should I say, an umbrella of harvesting the God-giving intellectual might of this country. I am a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. It is a grouping of probably, should I say, the most intellectual might of this country. Nobody gives a damn about the academy. Why? President, His Excellency, the late Atta Mills, built a fantastic monument for the academy. He died. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama continued it. It's there. It is a meeting of minds like no other in this country. Why wouldn't a government of this country meet with the Academy of Arts and Sciences and say, together, let's meet the needs of our people at their point of need? That is what I want to see happen. That is what I want to see happen. You understand? So that everybody who is capable throws his hat into the ring and develops this country. After all, I'm 70, 71. Good Lord, how many years have I got to survive on this earth? Give me 20 years. For all you care, even by the time you are 90, you are demented. You've got Alzheimer's. So life is short. and to be relevant and contribute to this country's development is essential. It's essential. And I'm saying this for most of the members of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences who are in the same age group as myself, and yet are still on their feet, are still as smart and as intelligent as they were probably at 40, 50. And I'm saying, let's tap into that mental, I don't know what word to use, that mental reserve of all these people. And these people, they don't come with political colors. Some are, of course, sympathizers of MPP, some are sympathizers of NDC. But in the Ghana Academy, nobody shows their political colors. Tap into that. All right? And there are other academies or agencies, equally, of people of stature. Let's do that for once. All right? And stop making sure that it is only the political class, people who, yes, have thrown our political activists, who one thinks are capable of developing the country. It is not like that at all. So for me, in addressing the issue whether we should stay, the CPP should stay, should I say, pristine and ideal and as a standalone, or whether it is time to blend. In pathology, you use the term, you blend imperceptibly. In other words, nobody standing outside will see. Because the ideology and the philosophy pretty much the same. And the personality who leads now is, Professor Mills told me, Akosa, I'm more CPP than you. Mm-hmm. Could I doubt that? Because I said, ask your big brother, Kweku, JC. We were all going every Sunday if Nkrumah is in town. We're all going to Flagstaff House to learn at the feet of the man. So you can't tell me, did you ever go and learn at the feet of Osagyefo? You didn't. So how can you say, did you go to Ideological Institute? No. I went to Ideological. He said, I went to Ideological Institute. So did your brother. And we all ended up here. You cannot say you are more CPP than I am. I dare say that His Excellency John Mahama can look at all of us in the face and say we cannot be more CPP than him. My father was a district commissioner. His father was a regional minister. His father was a minister. All right? Gee, closer to the man than any of us could ever get to. All right? And if he says that I am my father's son, just like Mr. Awoche came to my house to ask me whether I was my father's son, and I am prepared to do what Osagyefo had intended to do. Can you doubt it? Let me ask, can anybody doubt it? Of course not. You have no reason to doubt. What is important is the help from the larger Nkrumahist body to ensure that we meet the needs of the people at their point.
Right, Prof. Prof, so if you were to advise the president now, or let me say, if there was any part of Osagyefo's developmental agenda that you would, tell him that maybe he should look to implement this to alleviate the very, bad situation we find ourselves in as a country, what would it be? What part of Osagyefo's agenda would you tell the current president that he should consider reviving or, implementing now?
Number one, the 7-year development plan is still as relevant today. Nothing has changed very much in this country. But you see, I did indicate that before the Christmas of 1957, he did indicate that by the end of his term, Ghanaians will not be in need of food, clothing, shelter, health, and education. These are the 5 things that move any country. To each, you can add food, you can add agribusiness, all right? You create jobs for people. Education is the major route to any human being's development, all right? The health of the people is the wealth of the nation, all right? So if people are healthy and are educated, my God, let's look at Singapore. No natural resources. It's education and a healthy population that has developed Singapore to become, a first world nation. We can do that. So food, clothing, shelter, all this culturally based. You don't imbibe other cultures to grow. Otherwise, growth is not sustainable. Why in this country, for heaven's sake, do we build with cement blocks? We have got tons of clay. Why are we not, firing bricks so that our rooms will be cooler, so that we can dispense with air conditions and so on and so forth? Our development is not sustainable because it is not culturally based. You understand? And for me, those are the things. As far as education is concerned, there is no quality in our today's education. The kind of education that I had, I don't think that education is available. And education is not only just passing exam, lateralizing, reading. We lost reading when we were young. My illiterate mother insisted that every week we went to public library and took 3 books. And you go and come back, and what she will tell you is that if you read it, it will serve you well. If you don't read it, you'll be like her. Blind in terms of literacy. So we read. And therefore, you have a better command of the language that is not yours, because you have other people's shared experiences through reading. All right? So you speak better. You've read, you can speak better, so you can speak. And when you're placed in front of the camera or in public, you can discuss what it is that you believe is relevant. But don't you, Prof? You understand? So it becomes either anger or arrogance. You understand? So for me, the education, quality. Health. Look, why should any public officer, politician or senior public officer, be allowed to travel out to go and seek healthcare? Do they disrespect those of us who are the medically qualified professionals in this country? Do they disrespect us? If you look at the budget for external medical treatment, why are we not prepared to make sure that there are MRIs in every region, that there are CT scans? Whether you like it or not, health is expensive. And when they go out, they pay through their nose or through their nostrils. So why can't we develop here? Why? If the president is not well and is admitted to UGMC or Kolebu Teaching Hospital, what will happen? There are no competent doctors to look after them. There are. So these are some of the things. And I believe sincerely, if you are appointed as a politician and your children don't go to school in this country, His Excellency the President should ask questions. You want to put a policy on education and your children don't go to school here? No. Why should that be? Everybody's child is outside. And yet, somehow, those of us, our children should be here. I brought my children from the UK. I didn't keep them there. I brought them here to go to school here. They came here, they went to the tail end of primary school, they went to secondary school here, they went to university here. What is wrong with that? And today, I believe that wherever they are, they can conquer the world. So if you are somebody who's been put in a political class and a political position, and your children don't go to school, you don't attend healthcare here, I don't believe that you deserve to lead the people. So these are some of the things. Food, clothing, shelter. My God, we can. We can. We stopped growing cotton in this country. How much cotton do we grow? We had Cotton Development Board in this country. We are not producing enough grain. We had Grains Development Board. It should be possible at the beginning of every year to fix the price of a bag of maize just like you fix a bag of cocoa. So that if I am planting maize, I know that if I get 300 bags, this is the amount of money I get. That is how the cocoa people are able to survive. Let's do that for rice. Let's do that for maize. All right? Let's grow cotton so that we can do our real. Why did Mahatma Gandhi tell the people of India that you produce your own cotton, reel it, all right, thread it, and produce your own cloth? And today we go and buy the best of cotton from India or from Bangladesh or from Egypt. We are not prepared to do that. So let's do that. And this is where you say sustainable development must be culturally based. So your culture, out of your culture, all right, this is what you dress. Now, I'm glad that a lot of people wear smock. All right? A lot of people wear smock. Friday wear, it should not only be Friday wear. It should be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So long as you look professional. When I say professional, your shirt is ironed, your trousers is ironed, your shoe is polished, all that, your manner of... And again, education should take our value systems. Our value systems. In the good old days, it was traditional education. You went into apprenticeship. You were taught how to speak to your elders. You were taught the value systems of your culture. All right? And you learned the trade. And when you learned the trade and you passed out, you also imparted the trade. Does the white man's education not include values of respectability, of being honest? Then let's bring in the discipline. I think I wrote an article some time ago and I said that if in primary school we were taught nothing, but we're taught the discipline code of the convention peoples, of the Young Pioneer movement, all of us would have grown up into very upright gentlemen and ladies. Kwame Nkrumah brought Workers' Brigade. Till today, anybody should Google. It is probably the best employment opportunity and paramilitary organization ever. Because it taught people the paramedical was discipline. No country that is indisciplined progresses. And one of our greatest heartaches in this country is indiscipline. How can a government move and make sure that Ghanaians are disciplined? And in discipline everywhere. In public service, all right? People today, in 2025, don't even go and take driving license and get driving license. And when they get accident and kill people, whose fault is it? People are doing roads and they get to... Look, I just went to Makari Hill not too long ago. They did an asphalt surfacing. And in between the blocks is like gutter. So you get there, you stop. You have to get into the gutter. Who engineer supervised that work and decided that that was motorable? There's so much. This is the indiscipline that I'm talking about, and it stretches from political class, unfortunately, to professional class, to every class. This country, we must learn the fundamentals of discipline. Otherwise, there's no progress. So, Workers' Brigade, why not? People will say, you can bring it back. All this youth employment. They say we're going to do apprenticeship. It's all part of it. A little military training. You get up in the morning, you fall in, you are disciplined, you go to that. From that, you're doing tailoring, you're doing seamstressing, you're doing carpentry, you're doing masonry, you're doing all that. That is what the JSS was meant to do, in addition to grammar education. It did not achieve any of that. And it belittled even the grammar education that was, what we had previously. So there are mega issues in this country. And I hope sincerely that government will put it out to all the people of this country that we need everybody's support. Like-minded people, come on board, come help. It doesn't matter whether you are NDC. It doesn't matter whether you are part of the splinter Nkrumahist forces. It doesn't matter whether you are on the left of the right political instrument, spectrum. Because even on the right, there's the far right, there's the center, there's the left of center. On the right side, all of them can be brought together. If you did that, my God, you would have diminished the right, all right, considerably. And that for me is part of the acid test of leadership. You don't only play with your friends, but you play in your enemy's camp. This was something that my father told me. CPP, those days, he said, they don't go campaign during the day. They move at night because everybody is home. And when I come to you, an LLM person's home, your friends in the LLM will not know that you have been visited. You understand? So at night, they come. They enter everybody's house. They come and talk to you. Not everybody would respond, but some people will respond. Now we're not doing that. House to house open, so that everybody knows, this person has been visited by... No. Let's harvest the intellectual might. And there is so much of the intellectual might of Ghanaians that we can use to advance the cause of this country, culturally situated for sustainable development.
Right. Prof, so how far have we deviated? How far has Ghana deviated from the country or SADC envisioned and was working very hard to build?
Oh my God. This is, should I put it in degrees of deviation? 360 degrees deviation.
Wow.
We're not self-sufficient in food. We've got land mass crying out. And all the land mass is occupied by weeds. Weeds. You see weeds with green leaves. It tells you there are nutrients in the soil. You go to India, even 1 meter by 1 meter, they will plant something relevant. All because we have such a cumbersome land tenure system. Government must be bold enough, if possible, confront the National House of Chiefs and say, this is something that I want you, National House of Chiefs, the owners of the superficial land, to confront. It doesn't have to be a military government. You can say that 6 months. If after 6 months there's no joy, government by executive instrument can use land that is occupied by weeds to grow. The owner will be giving 30% of the share. We're not food sufficient. Food security is terribly bad. We need to produce enough food to be able to store. We need to be able to add value to the food, and that brings in agribusiness. I was glad that the Minister of Finance designate, Honorable Kesela Acheampong, said that he himself has a particular interest in agribusiness. We must ensure food security in this country. Food, clothing, shelter. What is all this peri-urban sprawl of ghettos? If that is how you live in your country, why would you not want to cross the Atlantic and go anywhere? Sahara and go anywhere? Why would you not? In your own country. Why does the cost of putting up a 1-bedroom house, self-contained, be so expensive that young people cannot? These are things that we must confront. We must confront them, should I say, intentionally. And I use this word, in its true sense, intentionally. We want to be able to, this affordable housing that we all do is too expensive. It's too expensive. So that was all the intention. Food, clothing, shelter, good health, good education. None of it. There is no part of the governance of this country that has been successful. Everywhere we are, deviated by pi. There used to be, I don't know whether you know pi, when we're doing mathematics. Yes, you deviate by pi. Everywhere there's deviation by pi. We're not making progress. And 1992 to now is how many years? 33 years. We're in 33 years. 33 years of uninterrupted democratic rule. And who are the beneficiaries? Many Ghanaians have not benefited one jot from this experience. The essence of leadership, I did indicate, is to meet the needs of the people at their point of need. If somebody lives in Bontonfuo, there's no point expecting him to come all the way to Accra for a passport. So the Agoro boys would deceive him or cheat him or her. The next major point from Bontonfuo, you go there, you should be able to get it. That is meeting the needs of people at their point of need. All right? We had food distribution. Food distribution. It brought food from farm gate to market. Transportation alone is what makes food expensive. Can't government go there and assist and ensure that no food, the post-harvest losses, too much. This is the reason why we can allow people like the seed companies to come here and come and talk GMO, because we will get more food. When all our food is rotten at farm gate, natural, organic food, let's get it to the market and let people be able to buy them reasonably. For me, I say 24-hour economy. Start from those who are currently not in the, economic loop. Start a night market. Rollins Park in Accra, everywhere. Start a night market. And everywhere you travel, you go anywhere, night market is beaming. Everything is there. You don't have to go and shop only during the day. Ghana, 6 o'clock, everything closes. There, you can get clothing, you can get shoes, you can get everything, you can get food to eat, you can get, listen, transportation, security, all those things are part of the 24-hour economy. So you start doing that, you're building up considerably. Anybody who has a public transport, you should have at least 2 drivers. One will do day, one will do night. Or, like nurses, 8 hour, 8 hour, 8 hour, 3. So not even businesses, just ordinary means of transportation, so that at 2 a.m., if somebody gets up, in a typical tree parlance, he's got nkete, he's hungry. He should be able to get out of his house, hit transport, get into town, and go and buy food to eat. You understand? And everywhere, Accra New Town, where is there a night market? I don't think so. Osu, yes, Osu, they've maintained it, and book home that you can get. But let it be everywhere. Security. All that is all part of the economy. Reduce transportation of food, cargo. These women, Ghanaian women, suffers beyond redemption just to be able to make a decent income and put food on the table for their children. And all this, government can look at it and meet their needs at their point of need and assist them and make life, I've said that in Ghana, nobody makes life easy for anybody. Everybody tries to make life difficult for the next person. We should change that. And it's all part of the whole indiscipline of the country. And that does not allow for sustainable progress.
Right, Prof. Prof, so in your submission, you highlighted how since 1992, democracy has not really benefited the majority of Ghanaians. And you also highlighted our lack of self-reliance. Prof, I have been researching about Ghana's history, from independence till now. And one leader I found, Prof, who, after Osajefo, worked to, first of all, build our self-reliance. And I'm referring to General Acheampong, General Acheampong. We had policies like Operation Feed Yourself, which was geared towards building our food sufficiency. He also worked to revive the Nkrumah factory that had been abandoned. You also spoke about affordable housing. He also built estates to accommodate Ghanaians. Prof, first of all, let me ask you, what is your candid view on the life and the policies and the impacts of General Acheampong?
He was an Nkrumahist. Unfortunately, somewhere along the line, power went into his head. Union government, if he had not put himself in the referendum, union government could have won. And you could have had a country based on professional development, not on political class. Because currently, it is party before country. It is party before country. Nobody can tell me that is not true. People love their party more than they love their country because the party will deliver for them. And this is the selfishness, what they want. But it should be Ghana first. You understand? And union government could have captured that center and made the country the focus of everybody and everybody's development. Unfortunately, that was where he really got caught up. But in all fairness, is any of those policies time-bound? Why have we not even embraced Operation Feed Yourself to make sure that there's food security? All the things that we're talking about. Employment, workers' brigade. Please, why do we want to put everything in an ideological bag? When people who have really scrutinized workers' brigade felt that it was one of the most disciplinary job opportunity programs ever. An illiterate drives a tractor. Woman drives a tractor. She just died two years ago. Antiboko. All the way from Akuse to Kintampo. And they thought she was going to not be able to do it. She did it in one. It wasn't overnight. She did it. She didn't know anything about tractor. But it was Workers' Brigade that taught her. You understand? Taught people how to make shoes. Taught people how to make tailoring. They were self-sufficient. They were producing their own uniforms, producing all those things, producing farming and producing kinke for the good people of this country. What is wrong with it? That everybody thinks that it is probably an ideological thing, so we cannot do it. It is not time-bound at all. And I believe sincerely that is why I say that if there are more people within the Nkrumahist tradition, within and joining and pushing for some of these things, it might just happen. I'm saying that if there was ever an opportunity, a best opportunity, this is the time.
Right, Prof. Prof, but back again to General Acheampong, because, Prof, in my assessment, I think that he has been dealt with unfairly. I mean, there are those who say that because he came to overthrow the Busia government, so it means the NPP are not fans of his. They are not going to talk about him, at least in a positive sense. The others also point out that he was executed by the PNDC or the June 4th, and I mean, Jerry John Rawlings, so that is the NDC. So they also cannot speak about him positively. And Prof, in my research, I have found testimonies by several people who admit that the general was not corrupt, in spite of all the allegations. Investigations show that he was not corrupt. And as I'm sure we both agree, his policies, and especially his revival of Osagyefos factories, because today we all lament about how they have all been abandoned to rot in the bushes. And General Acheampong worked to revive them, worked to build our food self-sufficiency, build houses for Ghanaians. I mean, he addressed the basic needs of Ghanaians, what you ought to keep on emphasizing on, which has been neglected by the so-called Democrats today. But Prof, what I want to ask is, if the NPP and NDC have neglected Acheampong, why have even Nkrumaists and nationalists or patriots also basically abandoned him? Because he's not talked about by anybody. Nobody claims General Acheampong. And I wonder what exactly is the cause of it.
You see, let's be honest. We live more in a democratic environment. And therefore, if you identify Kutu Acheampong as an Nkrumahist, then in a funny way, talking about Nkrumah is also talking about General Kutu Acheampong. One of the sad tragedies in this country, and again, it is the fact that as a country, we are not making the effort to catalog and present what is informed evidence. Look, I've always wondered why there's a historical society of Ghana, and yet are unable to write the proper political history of Ghana, not Michael Okwe's political history of Ghana. Why? What is the difficulty? So people who are historians by training are not prepared to sit down and write the true political history of this country and give credence to the likes of General Kutu Acheampong. This is one of our problems. Nkrumah started Encyclopedia Africana. Where is it? What has happened to it? Because we disagree ideologically doesn't mean that something that is beneficial to the good people of this country and to Africa at large should not be continued. And this country, unfortunately, is not prepared to put one pesewa into research. Look, any company that is developing, they put 15, 20, 30% of their revenue into research and development. This country is not even prepared to put 1%. I said, well, even 1 pesewa. How do you expect to grow? Look, if you did that, and that is why I say that, unfortunately, an interaction with the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences to say that, look, fine, you are the, I don't want to use this phrase, but let me use it. You are the best brains. All right? If we decide that we're putting 1% into research, all of you at this stage are probably even, senior citizens. So we will want you to manage this research fund. Because life is now scientifically based. 70% for scientific research, 30% for liberal arts, humanities, and all that. This is what we expect out of this every year, all right? And that becomes an assignment. And we can then say that the Historical Society of Ghana is being funded to write the history of Ghana. At the end of the day, whatever you write, people will disagree. Look, I've never been a fan of K. Ebuzia. I've never been. And maybe purely because of the fact that I am an Nkrumahist. But I have 2 of his books. And when I read it, I just said to myself, my God, what intellectual might. So, intellectually, I think I like K. Ebuzia. Maybe politically I don't. But that, for me, begins the change that must happen. If you've never read K. Buzia and you are an Nkrumahist, you might not like him. But having read his books, I now see where he came from. This is some of the things that I believe we must reorient ourselves and begin to do justice to really what has happened in this country. I said, no policy is time-bound. So even today, in 2025, we can do Operation Feed Yourself. In 2025, we can do Workers' Brigade as a solution to this huge youth unemployment. Poor quality education, youth employment, yes, apprenticeship, but apprenticeship plus a paramilitary discipline training would go a long way to put this country back where we believe it should. Can a democratic government do it? Of course it can try. It can try. Just, but we don't need an interrupted government. Unless, of course, we believe that because of the partisanness of our politics, and our partisanness is, let me use Ghanaian parlance, too severe. Our partisanness is too severe. Maybe in the future, a union government proposition can be something that we can look at. Just so that we put the political class, who unfortunately have become more greedy and more selfish, to one side, and allow the professional class to be able to be true professionals. Having said that, there are professionals who have joined the political class who are just as terrible. So, we've got to start somewhere. But I agree that policies are not time-bound. A lot of these policies will do well today, and therefore, it is important that we get our act together and get some of these things done. But any country that does not support research and development is going nowhere. It's going nowhere. And this country, for all these years, there's no research and development. If you take, again, Nkrumah, there was the Bureau of this. Nkrumah set up all these Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, all the various, everything was set up at that time. Who has added what? And how are they funded? They all have got to go out and go and compete for external funding. And if you do external funding, mind you, what is it called? The intellectual property is not owned by you. I can't fund you to be able to, own everything. No. So these are things that, as a country, we should begin to do. And we should be able to give honor where honor is due. All right? In a more impartial way. And that can only be done by professional bodies, who would do this in a no political colors, way of doing things. So these are all some of the things that we hope that we can do. But I believe sincerely that we're running out of time. 32, 33 years of uninterrupted democracy. And I can dare say that over 70% of Ghanaians have not been direct beneficiaries of this experiment.
Right, Prof. Prof, so let me ask you, just before we came here for this interview, somebody asked me that Kwame Nkrumah, why is he hated by certain people? Because he couldn't understand that a man who so selflessly served his people and worked for the benefit of Ghana and Africa has, should I say, people who see no good about him. So why was Osagyefo hated then? And why does this, even today there are people who still try to denigrate him. Why is that the case?
You see, well, let's look at Ghana's political history, the political history. We had a group that got, who had gone out and studied much earlier on. We were a British colony, had gone to Britain, had gone to Oxford, had come back. They were leaders in in the community. They had become members of a legislative assembly. They were pushing for some element of control of our resources. I don't use the word independence. They were not pushing for independence, for some element of control, so that as the Legislative Assembly and as indigents, that they will be in control of some of the resources during the colonial time. That was what was happening. And then, as we all know, there was the merchants, the colonial merchants and their subjugates, who were the Indians who had been brought in, as compradors in between the British and the Africans, all right? And these were the people who were making money. And they started making even the lives of businessmen like Pa Grants hell. So initially, the coming together of what then became UGCC was to ward off that impact on Ghanaian businessmen. So it was not, initially, the motive was not political. But having come together, they felt they could use that into a political movement. And since all of them were full-time lawyers, with the exception of William Ofurata, all right, let's go bring somebody who Akosa identified. Now, if Kwame Nkrumah was useless, Akosa would not have identified him and brought him. He had his own stature, he had his own energy, and he was somebody who liked people. He was not arrogant. He was not the kind of professional class who looked down on people. So he came. In fact, every agreement that was made before he came was not honored. But he was determined because he had prepared himself. Now, eventually, he takes what some people considered their birthright. Their birthright was that it was theirs to rule Ghana. And where from this man of no consequence, no serious background from, you understand? I mean, we come from the royal family in Agyeman Badu Akosa, and so on and so forth. So it was personal hatred. Of course, having come and taken over, realized that you can't look down on people. You want to have independence and rule and come and rule people and govern people, and you look down on them. And people saw through it. Krobody said that the first time he met Kwame Nkrumah, after the discussion, Kwame Nkrumah gave him money to go and buy food. And when they brought the food, he said they should all eat. He said, hey, no. How can I eat with you? J.B. Dankwa will never come and put food down and say, let's eat. Impossible. Who are you? You understand? So immediately they saw a difference in this man. Eventually, they said, no. You eat some, and what is left, we'll eat. When they went to Sorpon and met him in Sorpon, in his own office of this thing, he did the same thing. And they all realized that this is a man we can rely on. This is a man we can rely on. So the point is that some people felt that they had done enough to become the initial rulers of this country. What enough, I don't know. And then somebody comes and overwhelms the system and takes it over. And for personal hatred, even if that man did whatever, because he's gone in the annals of the history of this country as the first prime minister, the first leader of government business, the first prime minister, the first president, some people ain't gonna like him this side of life. But I'll tell you something, and somebody might tell me I'm blaspheming, but I believe that anybody whose life's influence grows even bigger after death achieved his purpose in life. I believe that. And I'm not in any way linking Kwame Nkrumah to Jesus Christ. But Jesus Christ is more popular after death than when he was alive. And Kwame Nkrumah has become more popular after death than when he was alive. Because he achieved his purpose. Their purposes are different. So those who might think that, Akosa, there he goes again, he's blaspheming. I'm not blaspheming. I'm saying his purpose for which he was brought into this world, he achieved it. And anybody who is able to do that is more popular after death. Who else? Mention. Many people, unfortunately, are unable to achieve their purpose in life. And therefore, they die with whatever song that they sang whilst they were alive. But Kwame Nkrumah, the moment you put him down, that is even where he flares up. Everybody, millennium, man of the African of the millennium. There's no end to the accolades that people paid this man. When Ghana was 50, the German president came to Ghana. And he went to Nkrumah's mausoleum, and it was in a terrible state. He told them that this is the reason why many people will come to Ghana. This man is the reason why many people come to Ghana. Because anybody who bothers to read finds in this man great attributes. So please, so they started renovating the place. Today, we have what I call a respectable monument. So those who hate him, let them hate him. If you've hate, like I said, I've read 2 books of Buzia, and I like his intellectual ability. If you've not read any of the 16 books of Kwame Nkrumah and you hate him, you are ignorant. You are a big ignoramus. You understand? And anybody who's been to school and doesn't read is worse than an illiterate. And I say this with no apologies whatsoever. People should read. That is why I say, even in politics, you play in your enemy camp. And you have not even read one of Kwame Nkrumah's book. Dark Days in Ghana. Africa Must Unite. Africa Must Unite, is it political? Is it? Africa Must Unite. Read it and see the person's intellectual trend. Read Conscientism. Read imperialism, the last stages of neocolonialism, the last stages of imperial. Read it and see whether this man that you are dealing with is worth all that mistrust and disbelief and hatred. No. People, it's how many years? I did the Academy's J.B. Dankwa Memorial Lecture. It's a 3-day J.B. Dankwa Memorial Lecture. As usual, when I wanted to do it, there are a lot of people in the academy who didn't want me to do it because somehow they thought that this is a die-in-the-wool Nkrumahist going to stand on a J.B. Dankwa platform. My topic was Ghana's polarized political terrain. And I said that the time has come. Those people have done their best for this country. Disagree with them or agree with them. But now is the time to use the best from all sides to come together and grow a disciplined, sustainable, developed country based on our cultural traditions. I ended the day, those who liked it, those who didn't like it, I didn't give a damn about them. But as far as I'm concerned, this is where this country should go. The polarization is too much. It's too much. And it's love of party and not love for country. And we cannot develop and progress and bequeath to the next generation a better, kinder, and generous country if we do that.
Indeed, Prof. Prof, so let me ask you one more question about the Osagyefo. The more I've researched about him, one unique thing I've found is how his contemporaries, his fellow leaders, like you take Sekou Toure, you take Amilcar Cabral, and many others, Gamal Abdel Nasser. I mean, even his colleagues in Ghana, like Kojo Botsio and K. Gbedema, you find that even though they were basically his mates, they had a certain level of reverence for him, almost as if they put him on a higher pedestal, you know. And I wonder why. Because it appears for the ordinary people of Africa, Osagyefo was special. But even amongst his own contemporaries, they also saw him as special. You know, I mean, take Sekou Toure agreeing or deciding to make him a co-president of his country, which was unprecedented, and it still remains unprecedented. So, Prof, why do you think that the man, I mean, even his contemporaries had such high regard for him? Why do you think that was the case?
It was his intellectual might. He prepared himself. He prepared himself. He read voraciously. His late son, Professor Francis Nkrumah, Emeritus Professor Francis Nkrumah, said that when he came back from Berlin, he did medicine in Berlin, and when he came back, he used to play tennis with his father every morning. All right? His father would give him a book, and by the next morning, his father would want to sit him down and discuss the book. Meanwhile, he got the book the day before, he's read it, he's giving it to him. And he did that for even the young men that he worked with, R.S. Amagashi, J.H. Frimpong Ansan, J.H. Mensah, and K.B. Asante. He went through that vigor with all of them. His intellectual capacity amazed everybody. And if you're a genuine person, you appreciate somebody's intellectual might and intellectual capacity. And all those people who looked at Nkrumah with awe were genuine people. Those who are not genuine do not care a hoot about your intellectual capacity, because they will not even aspire to gain that intellectual capacity. You understand? Yes. So it is a person, genuine human beings appreciating somebody, looking at somebody in awe and saying, my word, what a man. What a man. And every sphere of endeavor, the man could hold his own. That was the length and breadth and depth of that man's intellectual power. And you couldn't help if you were a genuine person. And I use that phraseology. If you were a genuine person, you couldn't help but appreciate him. Look, as in the UK, when Ghana Forum, the late Viscount Anthony Tony Benn, Wedgwood, yes, Anthony Wedgwood Benn, came to talk to us. And this guy had been a minister in about 3 or 4 governments, Harold Wilson and all those guys. And he said, you know something? Britain's role in the 1966 coup was how to separate Kwame Nkrumah from the people, because he was so much loved by his people because of his genuineness. And therefore, they realized the only way was to create an economic hardship. I've said this without number, and let me say this again. Why this country continues to rely on wheat flour for bread, I cannot understand. If the good Lord gives you lemons, we're told you produce lemonade. You don't produce apple juice. We've got cassava, we've got yam, we've got plantain, we can make flour, we've got millet, we've got maize, we've got all that. Why will this country not produce flour from what we produce as a basic food item? So the British decided that they would not allow wheat flour to come to Ghana. No milk, you don't produce milk. Even to today, we don't produce milk in this country. Fan milk uses, I don't know how many years old milk powder. We don't produce milk in this country. Why? So stopping all that was enough to get our people disillusioned. All right? But he himself, Anthony Wedgwood Benn, said Kwame Nkrumah was a total class act. That is a genuine human being. Kwame Nkrumah was a total class act. I was there, not that somebody told me. You understand? So anybody, like I said, people who are not genuine, you have not read, a man has written 16 books, you've not even read probably even one paragraph of any book, and yet you hate him. Please, accept his intellectual superiority, if nothing. Just like I've read 2 books of K. Buzia, and my God, do I admire his reasoning. He said that it is not, I can't get the direct quote, but paraphrasing it, it is not the beef of man to be immortal. And that the African unity started in its darkest period during slavery. But it is not something that will be achieved in one's lifetime. And particularly, it will not be sustained by people like Hitler. This was in reference to Kwame Nkrumah. All right? This was in reference to Kwame Nkrumah. But look at the way he put it. I read it and I laughed. And I said, K, what a brofo. Oh, yes. I said it in the comfort of my study. I said, K, what a brofo. So you have put the whole thing, caged it in a way that if you are not that politically astute, you wouldn't know that he's talking about Kwame Nkrumah. In other words, Kwame Nkrumah wanted to achieve African unity in his lifetime. You understand? That this thing started 300 years ago during slavery. And it's not going to be achieved in the lifetime of man. And it's not man's place in this world to make himself immortal. And that it will not be achieved sustainably by Hitler. African unity, Hitler, they found way. But you see, I mean, if you can't respect somebody for that kind of language, Master, I know when you're genuine. That is what I mean. Genuineness comes in, Charlie, at a profession. You've accepted it. And you learn from. If you're not prepared to learn from people who are better than you, your life is pedestrian. Pedestrian. You understand? So this is where we are. We are in a country, we must grow. We must grow beyond our 2 major political heroes. All right? But, of course, as a developing country, not a developed country, we must culturally base our development. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, you have no choice but to be part of the Nkrumahist philosophy that believed in the cultural expansion, food, clothing, shelter, health, education. And that is what will progress this country, plus all its offshoots in industrialization, in trade, in agribusiness, etc., co-minini, etc., etc. But I believe sincerely that this is Ghana's time.
Prof, I want to say first of all that I am happy, that you have spoken about reading K. Buzia's book and you give him his due, because one of the things I lament about a lot these days is the excessive partisanship and fanaticism, whereby somebody maybe supports the NDC, and because of that, he refuses to countenance any negative news or facts about the NDC. If maybe a leader of the NDC has done something wrong, he sees no evil simply because he thinks he's a member of the NDC. And then on the other side, it is the same. Because I think there should be more sincerity, more objectivity, whereby even if you are an Nkrumahist or I am an Nkrumahist and you find that, oh, this went wrong, you make the admission. And rightly, as you said, K. Buzia, where he deserves his applause, you give it to him. I have to say that I am happy to hear you say this, and I hope that many more people would pick this up, especially the young ones. Because for us, my generation, we have grown up seeing NPP and NDC. And for all our life, that is what we have known. So the partisanship has really eaten deep into us. So I hope, you recounting all these, stories would really impact at least some young people to grow beyond partisanship, and we must put Ghana first and put the truth first. So, Prof, thank you very much for, this recounting of, especially reading K. Buzia's book. But, Prof, I want us to talk about some Pan-Africanism now, because I believe you are a Pan-Africanist. First of all, Prof, is African unity still achievable?
I just read paraphrased a bit from Buzia that said, yes, it is something, it is a struggle, it is achievable, but probably not in one's lifetime. And it appears as if that statement is true. Let me say that you cannot be an Nkrumahist and not be a Pan-Africanist. The two merge imperceptibly. That's using my pathological phraseology. It merges imperceptibly like that. Africa, with presently 1.3 billion people, third behind China and India, speaking with one voice, will be a powerful tool. And with the world's greatest natural resources and a greater population of young people, will be the greatest force ever. But as Kwame Nkrumah said, divide ourselves into our small countries and you can be cherry-picked, all right, and destroyed. And that is what has happened. Whether people are thinking about this, they are. I was privileged during Kwame Nkrumah's centenary of his birth to have represented the Convention People's Party, or his party, at a symposium in Namibia, organized by the government and people of Namibia. It had Honorable Peter Ngongo from Kenya, and it had Al Shtawami from Egypt, and myself from Ghana. Everybody's point of view reflects the fact that Africa needs to unite. But you see, who wants that powerful Africa with one voice, with all the natural resources, with all the young men and women, creativity, intellectual might? Nobody wants it. The Western world that begat all that don't want it. And they will do everything to stand in the way, including bribing as many African leaders as possible. Why should Ouattara even think of going for a fourth term? Why should he? Is he an African with an African mind? I don't think so. I don't think so. He is a warped African leader with a French orientation and a French mind. So long as we've got leaders like that, Paul Biya and all those people in Africa, we ain't coming together too soon. Because these are the people who will be told to put, spokes into the whole thing. But Africa needs to. And I hope that things that have happened in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Chad, in Niger, will continue. I'm not saying that it should all be military coups, but there's no reason why Senegal, with its young leader, cannot espouse, to join the Sahel. If that happens, then the only person that is left out is Guinea. If Guinea joins, Côte d'Ivoire has no choice. It has no choice. So gradually, there's a groundswell. There's a groundswell that is coming up. Progressives everywhere believe in African unity. Non-progressives believe in Western ideology and would want us to be dismembered and cherry-picked at will. Because a non-progressive is a selfish, greedy, arrogant individual and want everything for himself or herself and not for the common good of the country. So progressives would always win. But how long it would take is what K. Buzia espoused. But I believe that there are catalysts that, are happening. And all you need to do is Gabon, I'm told, is also espousing the same thing, all right? Somebody like Paul Kagame speaks about some of these things. So again, what is important is an effective alignment. But I believe that if you're a young African and you are not progressive, then I'm sorry for you. But if you're progressive, you believe that African unity must be. Because with 1.3 million, third in terms of population, greatest natural assets, greatest number of young, creative people, this continent will boom. Of course, your land mass is there. You've got land to feed the whole world. You can do it. But you sit down and allow the Chinas of this world, the Russians and the OECD, Western countries to cherry pick you, you're not going anywhere too soon.
Right, Prof. Prof, so let me ask you specifically about Ibrahim Traore, because at President Mahama's inauguration, it was noted that out of all the African leaders who were present, he received the loudest cheer when his name was mentioned. And I want to ask you, what message, what do you think accounts for that? Because there were so many other leaders. You mentioned Kagame and William Ruto and all others, but Ibrahim Traore was the one who received the loudest cheer from the crowd at the event.
Most African youth are progressives. They see his stand against France as something that all African countries should do. And he took the risk of leaving his country and coming to Ghana. Because France has not taken their eyes off the ball. And at any time, France will want to create confusion there. Because his presence destabilizes Alassane Ouattara in Côte d'Ivoire. So for him to have braved the situation, for him to have come, for him to have started doing what he's doing in Burkina Faso, and for his relationship with the colonial master, I think all Africans will hail him, just as they did his predecessor, Thomas Sankara. This is where we should go. this is where we should go. Unfortunately, we had our own Jerry Rawlings, and 19 years, Ghana could have been like Malaysia under Mahathir Mohamad. I hope to God that he doesn't deviate from what he's doing now and lead Burkina Faso to greater progress and greater glory.
Right, Prof. Prof, we've spoken a lot about politics, about Osaje for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, about Pan-Africanism now. But I need you, Prof, we need to speak a little bit about health, about public health, because you have also, you also, over the years, have come out from time to time to give advice to the public about, our health habits and all of that. So, Prof, this is a new year, and I need you to just speak to those who are watching us about how to, keep healthy and certain habits that they should avoid and those that they should pick up.
At this stage, let me just say, fellow Ghanaians. And I know that...
Well, Prof, our audience is also African, so...
Oh, okay.
Let us not limit it to
all
just
right, okay.
Ghanaians.
So, fellow Africans. I said fellow Ghanaians because it has some connotation, particularly at the time of the COVID era, when our then president, did his periodic addresses to the nation. Let me say that each and every one of us, your health is in your own hands. It is a common adage in public health that you produce your health. Health is not produced by health professionals. You produce your health, and therefore, what you eat, how much water you drink, what physical exercises you do, what mental exercises you do, all beneficial to your health. If you take diet, as Africans, our food is too much starch-based, too much carbohydrate-based. Carbohydrate ends up in your body as sugar. So you may not be eating granulated sugar or cube sugar per se, but the amount of food you eat, your carbohydrate, your rice, your white bread, all of that ends up as sugar. We have always said that if you divide your plate into three, 1/3 of it, only 1/3 should be carbohydrate. We are not doing a story building so that your ground floor, which is full of the plate, becomes your carbohydrate, and then you have a little presidential suite as your protein on top of it. Divide the inner chamber of the plate into three, and that third should be carbohydrate. The second is protein. And those who don't eat meat or fish, whatever, don't eat eggs, they know where to get their proteins from beans, all right, lentils, all that. The other third should be vegetables. Vegetables are called micronutrients. They produce the vitamin A, B, C, D, whatever, all that, micronutrients, including the zinc, including the calcium, including all the minerals that you need. But all this, there must be fat. The fat, I have had cause to speak to my fellow Africans. The tropical oils are the best. They are natural oils. Whether it's coconut oil, whether it's palm kernel oil, whether it's palm oil, whether it's shea butter. These are the best tropical oils for you. All the seed oils are industrial oils. They were created because the West did not want to spend all their money importing tropical oils. So they produced their own oils. I can tell you that those oils are fit for machines, not for the human body. I say this with all sincerity. And I don't believe any government needs to ban them, but educate your people to eat their own coconut oil. If you grate coconut and you leave it in the sun, the oil drips. Oil drips. If you boil the flesh of the palm nut and put ice on it, the oil solidifies and you can just take it, warm it, and you have palm oil. If you were to take palm kernel nut and grate it just like coconut, you will get oil. These are natural. You cannot boil maize and get oil. You can't. It doesn't happen. You have got to take the seeds and take it through industrial machines. 1910, industrialization brought seed oils. And they've told us that seed oils are the best. But I will tell you in all sincerity, it isn't. So that is with food. Divide your plate into 3. 1 carbohydrate, 1 protein, 1 vegetables, and make the sauce of the vegetable with appropriate fat and eat. Drink a lot of water. We live in a tropical environment. We say 3 liters a day. I tell you, with the spate of kidney diseases, if you can drink more, it's better. After all, you just blow through your tubes. You urinate. What is good is kept. What is bad is brought out. So the more you drink, the better. All right? Then we talked about physical exercise. The body was made to walk. The body was not made to sit or sleep. The more exercise you do, the greater the mobility and the flexibility of your joints. Your knee joint, your hip joint, your elbow joint, your shoulder joint. The more you walk, the better the flexibility. It has its own oils that it produces to lubricate. If you stay static, it doesn't produce that anymore because the body thinks that you don't need it. And if you produce it, then you are flexible. So exercise. And the better exercise you do, the better you tone your muscles, and therefore, the better you look. If you stop exercise, you build up a pot belly. You build up fat on your hips, fat on your buttocks. All right? The upper thigh, the upper arm, the buttocks, the hips for the ladies, the men, abdominal girth. All of that is a poor reflection on your health. And we all talk about physical activity, but don't talk about mental activity. Today, mental health is one of the greatest public health problems. Many people are developing forgetfulness, are developing some form of dementia. The more mental exercise you do, the better it is. If you're an avid reader, it's mental exercise. If you play chess, it's a mental exercise. If you play snakes and ladders and ludo and oware and draft, all of these are mental exercise. If you do crossword puzzle, all those things, they're mental exercises. The more mental exercises you do, the more agile the more alert, mentally alert you are. The more physical exercises you do, the more agile you are. The better food you eat, the more water you drink, the better it is for you. A little alcohol spoils nothing. If you're not partial to it, don't do it. If you can't sip, don't drink it. Don't gulp. Don't gulp. Any alcohol that you have got to gulp, stop. It's not good for you. If you can sip it, add mixers to it. Energy drink. If you can avoid it from today, stop. It is dangerous. It contains too much calories, too much caffeine, too much sugar. It is bad for you. And most trotro drivers, most long-distance drivers, they get at least 2 packs of 6 throughout the day. You are walking yourself into diabetes. And for this new year, we want everybody to stay alive. We want everybody to be disciplined, particularly on the road. If you're disciplined, you are not in a hurry. Where are you going? We are not going to, it's not the years of essential commodities where we are going to all go and line up to get essential commodities. You are going to Accra. I'm also going to Accra. What is the speed for? If you know you have a meeting at 10 o'clock, leave early. And be disciplined and be conscious of the lives of others. You don't live life for yourself. It is said, don't get noticed when you are present in life, but get noticed when you are absent. It is your absence that human beings should recognize you, not when you are there. I believe that the life is worth living. Life is to be kind, generous to your fellow human being. If you're able to do that, the good Lord in diverse ways blesses you because you've been a child after his own heart. If he can deliver us from all our sins by giving his child Jesus to be condemned and killed, then you doing same to your fellow human being is recognized, appreciated, and you get your spiritual blessing. With that, I wish all Africans, Ghanaians, Africans, a happy, fun-filled, and blessed New Year. Let's engage in sport. Let's engage in fun. Life is all about fun. The better sense of humor you have, the better in your absence people will notice you. If you are arrogant and you are power drunk, people notice you in your presence. But my God, in your arrogance, in your absence, do they despise you? And I don't see why anybody should live a life that is not worth living and that is worth being denigrated when the person is not there. So let's all, arms together, let's all be progressive. Let's fight for the unity of the African continent, because a force of 1.3 billion people, with all the natural resources, with all the youthful creativity and intelligence, let's harvest all our intellectual might and grow this country on a sustainable cultural basis. This is my message to all of you in 2025. And let it be, for it can be, and all of us will be the better for it. Thank you.
Prof, on this note, I thank you so much for making the time for us.
Thank you.